two speakers. The first one will be Paul Breran. Now, Paul, not too long ago, bought a new home, and he has been determined to make this a zero-emission home and take advantage of every possible incentive and program that's out there. It's a lot harder than it sounds. Fortunately, Paul is a guy who assiduously documents everything, and he's been an asset to the club for that reason. We can all benefit from learning about his journey and the twists and turns. Paul? Thank you, Mary.
Representative Steinberg, we got to meet 2.5 years ago in Westport at the train station with the solar panels on the roof there, and a Lucid Air was there, and it just debuted to the world 2 weeks earlier. Here's Dave, 2.5 years later, driving around Florida and back. It's really cool to be here and present this stuff. Oops, there we go. And also, Mark, thanks for mentioning heat pumps. Heat pumps are going to come up. That's a theme here. All right, so this is a little bit about me. I've had a blog for about 12 years. That's where I try to write down my stuff. And here's a summary. You get a little preview of the roof there. Let's get into this. Background. I've been in IT for about 30 years. I've never spoken publicly in an event outside of computer geeks in a room, so this is different for me. But I'm here representing myself. This is my first time doing such a thing. And if you're interested in my articles, this is the kind of stuff I do, is measuring watts, decibels, temperatures, on computer gear typically, but more and more I'm using those same gizmos to check how did my HVAC contractor do installing their stuff. Basically, using a bit of science and measuring stuff to figure out how it's going on my goal of trying to go to a more sustainable way of life with my wife. So I grew up in Weathersfield, near Hartford there. I lived in Ithaca 5 years, started my family. My wife and I bought our first home in 1990 in Weathersfield by a builder that has made 1,500 homes all over the Hartford, Connecticut area. Okay, this is not Fairfield County, this is Hartford, and it was very hard to find contractors that were really savvy about going green in any way, shape, or form. This deck will kind of get into that. That was my biggest challenge, frankly. So in 2022, we were facing an empty nest. Some health challenges. Getting to a one-story home was definitely desirable. Intended to be our forever home, known as our home before a home, if you look at it that way. And we had look at new construction, trying to find land anywhere near Hartford at any reasonable price that had maybe town sewer. We wanted as simple as possible future and as much control over our monthly bills as possible to try to live somewhere in the next 20, 30 years. So it was a no-go trying to build new. It was going to be stressful, it was going to take a lot of time, and I had to focus on my IT career and some job changes and all that I was going through. So, just so happens a house became on sale in our neighborhood on a Friday. Had no trees around it, had to talk with my wife and kids that weekend, and we made an offer, and we had only 3 weeks where we owned the two houses. So there's a whole lot of planning, that's 60 days waiting for the closing to figure out how on earth am I going to line up contractors with only 3 hours of access to the home that we hadn't yet closed on September 15th. It was a crazy year last year. You're going to hear more about that. Rewinding a little bit, back to 2018, finally made the jump from 30 years of Honda Civic ownership to a Tesla Model 3. That got me thinking in a whole direction on all the other aspects of my life. But I drove a lot for work, and this is my patch, and it was very good. Basically, being in the safest car, the most American car, and the most efficient way to move from point A to point B. That's what a Model 3 was. It really did change the world. And those superlatives are backed up by science and math and aerodynamics. This car was the safest way I could basically pitch to my wife. How do I drive 20,000 miles, business miles safely, and always get to business meetings in southern New Jersey when I'm leaving at 6 in the morning for Connecticut on time? Supercharging had to work, and it did. So 78,000 miles later, my car's driving back from Acadia Park. You can see it in the upper right of that map. My son got to visit Acadia this weekend. Basically, a giant campground battery to enjoy a week in the woods. And it worked fine, obviously. All right, let's move along. Supercharging, I've done that 164 times at 78 supercharger locations. So DC fast charging is the term Dave used. That's correct. And it was pretty much flawless. Only twice, I think I had to move from one stall to another because it was slightly slow in one stall. That is hardly a big whoop. It never affected our travel. One of our sons lived in Pittsburgh for a while. No problem making that 9-hour trip from Connecticut multiple times. Stopping briefly for lunch and dinner. Moving along here, How much when you're driving 2 electric cars? So my wife's Honda Civic gave it up, got towed twice in one winter. It was time for her to get a Model 3 standard range, full cheaper rebate, full $3,750, not $7,500 at that point. We got the price down and basically knocked the sales tax off. It really was a $38,000 car way back in the end of 2020. End of 2019. No, wrong. So yes, that was very successful, but we're wondering if we're moving 2 doors down and we're going to electrify this new home. 2 EVs, one of them is charging at 40 amps, the other at 32, the standard range is as fast as it can go. That's a lot of juice. So it got me thinking, okay, again, I have about 60 days to figure out all the details of how to move into this house and how to wire it correctly from the get-go and never have to worry about wires again. So I didn't know this number at the time, but I was like, how much juice am I using? How much is my electric bill overall as the cars? 11%, it's actually not that bad. Our kids live in Boston, New York, so we drive to Boston, New York. That's a 2-hour trip each way. So you're pushing the limit, pushing the range in the car. That is a road trip. And it's mighty convenient to never have to stop at all, to make it more like a gas car. All right, and then finally I've got a suite of articles including things about Brewster, New York, one of the first locations in the United States where you can charge any brand of EV on a supercharger. So Marquez Brownlee and other big bloggers there showing the world, here's a Ford F-150 Lightning. Didn't quite fit. You had to be within an inch of a bollard to charge that vehicle. 2 days later, I went back on that site because I was driving to New York anyway. The bollards were gone. I don't know, Dunkin' Donuts, Tesla, someone decided to rip the bollards out, and I just kind of laughed, like how quickly they move and look at what's happening at a site to fix it. Now it's 2 months later, I was in Brewster 3 days ago on another trip to New York. There was only one Tesla there, and there were no other EVs, so it's a calm, kind of off the beaten path place, so Tesla chose it wisely. You drove all over upstate New York and saw a bunch of those. But anyway, let's move forward. I'm also an optimist like Dave. I look at 2 or 3 years from now being a whole lot better than the spot we're in right now, including buying a car, like where you have the promise of buying a GM or Ford. You'll have an adapter and you'll be good for road trips. But not so much this coming summer, say. It's going to take a little more time. Oh, QR codes. You can get the deck. You can find it on my site tonight. But if you find something today, come talk to me in the parking lot afterward. David, if you're staying a bit too with your Lucid Air, come talk to us with questions. Hopefully I'm generating questions that are invariably going to come up, as this deck gets a little bit dense here, and then a whole bunch of fun pictures at the end. All right, let's move along to that, in case you're interested in more videos about it. Sandy Monroe, leader in the industry, many of you followed him, EV Club, he actually spoke to our little club. He said at the end, he really likes to help speak to little groups. That was meaningful. I mean, he had plenty of press he could talk to on all the major networks, and he spent time with us and Barry and the rest of the EV Club. So I would encourage you to also sign up there. Oh, if you end up buying anything, you can use that. You'll save some money. There's really no disadvantage to doing that. Or any other blogger you follow. Like, people have referral links. Finally, these. So I've been helping with a Twitter, now called X, account and the YouTube channel for EV Club. And if you're interested in like a suite of EV owner videos, we put that together. And there's like 7 or 8 makes out there. So if you have a relative shopping for cars, you might find Connecticut filmed right in Connecticut at the beach there, a video about it with a real owner who drove that car around and owned it. Right? That's a little different than usual reviewer. It's people that own the car and drove it around and do they like it or not. So if that's your thing, the EV Club has a YouTube channel for that. All right, let's get into incentives. That's the point of my talking. But again, the allure of showing you the project, those pictures are coming at the end, but we'll plow through some of these because they're a big deal. These are how I surprisingly convinced my wife that this might be a good idea. Do we want to pay Eversource between $80,000 and $120,000 for living in that house for the next 15, 20 years? That was the decision. Just take out a calculator, multiply it by how many months you're making that $500 to $700 electric bill. Depends on what you guys do in your house, how old your house is, how efficient. You'd be surprised when you realize, oh wow, is there a way to avoid doing that? Well, that's what the discussion was. All these little details, though, help shave money off the cost. So we have 2 EVs. I successfully signed up for the beta program with Eversource. First summer was a little rough, where they'll curtail your car when it's a high demand energy event. So let's say it's 4 to 7 p.m. and we have kids in Boston, New York. The car needs to be ready and juiced up for the next day. Sometimes we drove to one city one day and we're driving to the next city the next morning. We actually do need to charge our car in 7 hours overnight. Sometimes a business trip will get home at 11 at night and needs to be ready at 8 a.m. So if you have a curtailment event, it needs to handle that. You need to just plug in the car, bring it in the garage, takes all of 3 seconds. And it was a little bit of a rough go, but basically it would stop charging your car at 4 p.m. and text your phone and let you know. But it would forget to restart charging at 7 p.m. That wasn't so good if you wake up the next morning, your car's not juiced up. They fixed that. And now I have events going right through yesterday that work flawlessly. Looking at my wife's car stopping and starting, you can opt out of these events. It's been no problem. And we get a $200 check at the end of the season for each EV enrolled. And I didn't have to re-enroll year after year. Okay? So if you have, there's some nuance to signing up for these things. You might have security concerns, you might wonder how it works. With a Tesla, it's actually your Tesla account. It's not talking to the wall charger in my garage or anything. It's actually giving trust to Eversource, this third-party company they hired, to have access to be able to stop and start charging in your car. So, again, if you have more questions about this stuff after, by all means, feel free to come and ask me. Next question. Oh, does anyone, I want to show of hands. This is the fun part of publicly presenting. How many people are enrolled in this already? Just to get to know the audience a little. That's okay. That's like 15% of the room or something, so it's a good chunk. How many are EV drivers today? Not plug-in hybrid, battery electric vehicle completely. That's half, wow, what a crowd, okay. 60% of the room are already driving EVs, cool. So you're probably thinking about some of the same things, like how do you charge 2 EVs in a garage when you dump gas entirely? I did take it even further, and being partly inspired by a trip to California where you already see they've outlawed all 2-stroke motors, leaf blowers, mowers, they're all electric. Well, my wife and I did that too. We're moving from one house to another without, let's leave the gas tanks and the oil changes behind, never doing that again. So that meant electrifying my shed and having a week off from work this week and digging trenches. Now I can charge my mower in a shed and so forth. I'm determined to try to dump all fossil fuels, so we're getting to that. All right, back to the incentives. What's this one? This was only announced, I think about 5-6 weeks ago. Okay, so my solar permission to operate only came July 7th, the day after on July 6th. Eversource came out and put a bidirectional meter. Here we have Eversource here today too, which is awesome. Once I put that bidirectional meter on, you're waiting for a thing called a permission to operate, permission to export. You're waiting for a PDF that you get, that Tesla then sees to activate your account to allow this program. So see the word Connecticut, circle, this is good. Luck would have it, I started this road of going with a solar roof 13 months ago. Here I am, I still don't quite have it in the app. I was hoping to pull it off, but thanks to Bruce, he gave me some screenshots of what it's about to look like on my phone. So here comes the next screen. This sounds pretty dorky, geeky, whatever, but when you have a project that took 13 months to come to fruition, and you're just waiting for that last permit, and I knew I was publicly presenting, boy was I itching to get that on the app, and I just couldn't get it done today. They have a backlog. Both Eversource has a backlog of customers trying to do this stuff, and so does Tesla. Between the two companies, it takes months for this stuff. You just gotta be patient. That's the way it is. But here it is. This is pretty cool. This is from Bruce's screen. Now, Bruce, I blurred out the name of the home or whatever. I didn't want anything sensitive here, but how long has that been active in your account?
Only about a week.
A week, okay. So you're at the bleeding edge here, right? This is new stuff. Be happy that this is available in Connecticut if you happen to go with Tesla Solar. Now, that doesn't mean you're putting all your eggs in one basket, one company, but you're going to see the next screen. Oops, that's coming up later in the deck. You're going to see other benefits coming up, and one of them is called Charge on Solar. That's coming a little later in the deck because it's not actually money. Let me focus back on these screenshots that are about money. So what does this mean to Bruce and I and other people in the Tesla account? Well, right now Eversource only pays me 6 cents per kilowatt hour for excess energy I have. So I charge my 4 Powerwalls in the garage once they're juiced up to 100%. Now the electrons are being pumped out back to the grid, helping my neighborhood, and Eversource paying me a little bit. But they're not paying me 14 cents or 12 to 14 cents that I'm paying, which went up to 24 cents, which how many people got stuck with a 24 cent per kilowatt hour electric bill January 1st when Eversource changed the rate? Like, okay. I mean, it sounds like most people in the room knew to shop and try to find out energy providers. Anyhow, back to this. Would you like for Eversource to be desperate enough to not maybe upgrade all their transformers and do all kinds of expensive upgrades, instead just pay people like Bruce and I a little bit of money so that they can get through a almost brownout event and just buy some electrons from us when they need them the most, when they're worth the most. So it's basically a way for us to make more money than a measly 6 cents a kilowatt hour for that extra juice. In return, though, we have to agree for up to 60 events per summer, or maybe winter too, I suppose, in a weird circumstance, for them to suck batteries out of my Powerwalls in my garage. That's the trade-off. So this program, as you heard hot off the press, a week or two old, I don't have details. A year from now, I'll have a whole lot more data, including owning everything for a year and have some metrics. Right now, I don't. Bruce, yours is too early too. You have no idea what you can earn. The first event got canceled, you said? So you haven't even seen a successful event.
There were two, there's supposed to be 2 events Last week there was one.
Did you see money, or you don't know until the end of the month?
I'll look.
Okay. So Bruce is having a look at his phone. I don't know if it's going to show money, but
What's an event?
yeah, event where they might need to fire up a peaker plant, an old diesel generating plant to make it through otherwise you're going to have a brownout, so it's really hot out, and everyone's got their air conditioning, it's 4 p.m. That's when it stops charging my car. We talked about that 2 slides ago, but that's when it could also start sucking juice out of my garage. Yes?
So you actually get the money at the end of the year.
So it's a true up, but I'm wondering if his app would show him the pennies and dollars now, or does he have to wait till the end of the year to, hopefully every month, who knows?
I think for me it was last year.
Cool, what program was that? Something,
That's it.
the same exact thing?
Yeah.
So this already existed a year ago in this form? Because
Yes.
when I talked to Eversource and Tesla, they sure seemed to think it was pretty new in Connecticut, or maybe a new rate was negotiated, I don't know. Was it good money, hundreds?
It was around 1,000.
1,000, okay. Thank you, this is great, the advantage of being in a room with other people. So far, you're only the second person I've ever talked to with a system going like this. All right, let's move along to the next piece. And that
There's
is,
879 houses that are connected as of now.
if you didn't hear that, 879 houses in Connecticut Eversource customer land that are enrolled. So this virtual power plant is beefing up Connecticut's infrastructure. Our grid is becoming more resilient to downtime because of, frankly, early adopters that are enrolling in this program. In return for sending juice back and making Eversource look good in what would otherwise be a bad day. You are paying something. All right. Energize CT residential insulation incentive. Not the catchiest phrase, just copy and paste right off our website. Another QR code for you in case you feel like getting your phone at. This is in case you haven't discovered that things like insulating our house. We moved into a 33-year-old house. It was not there. It needed insulation. They found mistakes in the attic. One room, a sunroom that had been added, had no insulation. The garage had no insulation, and the outside wall of the garage had no insulation. So we fixed all that, because I'd like to keep my cars in there. I knew that power walls are going in the garage. Let's keep it 40 Fahrenheit instead of 12 Fahrenheit in the winter. So the garage is beefed up, the porch is good. There was a lot of money. It took about 10 months to get the check. So it's painful. But my point is, this launching page, if you haven't discovered it, Energize CT, things like heat pump water heaters, which I also have, that I didn't have to do the paperwork for. The contractor, luckily, did. So they got their money off the cash register before they even left with the heat pump water heater. So if you remember nothing else from today, try to get contractors, if you can find one, that will happily knock down your bill so they can deal with the paperwork, not you wait for 10 months for a check. So what went wrong? Oh boy, everything did. It got lost in the mail, first of all. My outbound paperwork got lost. I'd taken pictures of it. When I contested, like, what's going on, it's 5 months later, they're like, yeah, we never got it. I'm like, well, I got a copy. Then they actually asked me for a picture of the envelope. So my point here is they only use USPS. They don't use UPS and FedEx. I had a picture of the envelope. That's how I got my $3,600. So my wife was rather happy. I took a picture of the envelope as I walked out to the mailbox. So this program needs improvement, but does anyone see another problem? What's written in red there? Oh my. So my wife and I are out front of our house. We see the mailman drive by and he doesn't stop at our mailbox. We're like, oh, I guess we don't have any mail today. It's like 4 to 3 p.m., whatever the usual time. But my wife's like, oh, we get the USPS scan in the morning. There's supposed to be something in the mail here. 8 p.m., we go back to the mailbox. A torn open envelope is there in our mailbox. Luckily, we got our check, but I think the mailman just messed up. I don't think anyone was being evil. Someone just opened our mail. It just shows you it went wrong in both directions. There's got to be a better way. Just a little bit of constructive feedback for Eversource, the EFI program. It's a dumpster fire. The URL was, the contact phone numbers changed twice on me. The email started bouncing for support. Total nightmare to get that $3,600. I worked hard for that $3,600. But in the end, it came. All right. IRS. This one is the government. Even more. Yes.
Did you use a contractor for the installation?
I did, but he had me do the paperwork. Yeah. Yep. Mistake on my part. If you can find it. Remember, I had a tight time frame where my wife and I had this window, 60 days to find contractors, and only 3 hours to inspect. 3 hours to inspect the house before closing. How are you going to line them up and have the house heated before winter? And we moved in October 1st, so it needed heat and electricity and all that. All right, next credit, and then we'll get into the fun pictures. IRS. This is a big one. That's why I have a giant arrow and a tiny little word you probably can't see. It's 30%, if you didn't know that. So how else do you get 30% off your roof? Well, you only get that if solar's built into the roof. Our house happens to have no trees, face west, southwest. So for cosmetic reasons, spending more money on a Tesla solar roof made sense. I'm not claiming it makes sense probably for 80% of other use cases in the room, especially if your house has a giant back roof facing south. You're good with whatever the heck brand. I'm not trying to say this is right for everybody by any stretch. But 30% certainly helped because the house needed a new roof. And we were in that circumstance, right? No roof, good solar. It's also a one-story house, so if any of you are thinking about downsizing from a two-story colonial, super common in Connecticut or Ray's Ranch, to one-story, you have a bigger basement, you have a bigger roof. That's a big expense when it comes time to replace the roof, but that is an advantage to a one-story house. It's also a bigger solar target. Plenty of room for solar, so just something to think about. So again, 30% off. There's some fine print here. My wife and I need to own that. Let's see, I took a new job in May. To my surprise, I was laid off in February, had a surgery in the family. My wife still didn't cancel the whole project. I thought she was gonna say, forget the whole solar roof thing. She did not. She was that committed. Got a new job, got surgery done, everyone's fine again. And it got installed in May. They thought it was gonna be October. They called me one day and said, how would you like it in mid-May? I'm like, yes, let's do it. 7 people crawling up all over my roof 2 days later. Tesla really kicked butt. They're Rocky Hill, Connecticut, the local crew, and they were pretty eager to do the project, even though it had been percolating for 9 months, and they did. So finally all the permits and everything happened. The point is, though, that money is big, and I have to wait for it. And if I don't owe that much in tax indebtedness, I have to wait like 2 or 3 years to get it. So now the question is, call my HR, and how do I withhold as little federal as possible so that the feds will owe me a lot in April? But how do I survive until then? It's tricky stuff. This is the big one though, 30% off federal, that's a big one. So you want to read up on that one. Call, as Dave said, talk to your tax preparer, don't count it. All right? All right, here it is, the renovation, what did it actually do? So trying to make the home more efficient was the first thing. If you just throw heat pumps in a house and rip out natural gas on day one of construction like I did. So we closed the house on a Thursday, Friday demolition began, ripping out the baseboard heaters, moving away from natural gas forever, and regaining the ability to move furniture around whichever corner of the room we wanted. It's really lovely not having baseboard heaters, I'll just say that. But it was a big commitment. We need to make sure it worked, because there's no going back after ripping out the natural gas. And CMG, Connecticut Natural Gas, was not pleased. And I was supposed to have a permit months in advance. So when I called them, I said, can you rip out the meter next week? They thought I was crazy. They're like, well, we're ripping it out anyway, and they showed up, so it worked out. This is what we had to do. This is like the first thing. It's just the panel. How are you gonna get enough circuits to run heat pumps, hot pump water heater, and 2 EVs in the garage? This is it. Just get a panel that can actually handle 200 amps and measure every device on there. So I know, did the HVAC company mess up with something? Or is everything working correctly? Well, when you have a device like this, that my app, my phone just shows me exactly what's being used in my house right now, it's really handy. Because things like your heat pump water heater are 240 volt, or your oven is 240 volt. You have no idea how much that's using. It's not common to have a monitoring device. SPAN lets you do that, and that's by an ex-Tesla engineer, and that's a live look at my house. With 13,000 kilowatts off the roof right now, and whatever my wife's doing at home, about 8,000 watts running 2 air conditioners in a pretty hot day. We're trying to get the number down. The saga's still continuing. The story's not over yet. On the left there, you see my electrician and the owner of the house, me, and SPAN, a guy from West Hartford, Connecticut, actually, speaking on a panel discussion we had as part of EV Plug. So if you haven't signed up for Barry's EV Plug, and most people here probably have, do so, because that's the kind of Zoom events we run on a pretty much a monthly basis. And he, get this, Dave Connor, he repairs, Electrify America equipment on evenings and weekends and emergencies and thunderstorms and tow trucks and cutting wires. He does that crazy stuff. So I have a lot of fun talking about electrician with sidebar stories about his experiences with electrifying America. What a job he has. But the guy knows what he's doing, and this was key. He pre-wired this panel because I wasn't having solar for maybe forever if it never got approved or if Tesla pulled out of that business. I have no idea. But we got the smart panel so that we could buy some brand of solar at some later date. And it worked. And he left a giant hoop of 8 feet of extra cable above it. So whoever came in and installed solar someday didn't have to mess with it as the handiwork and make his beautiful work go for nothing. We have to rip out those wires and do it again. He worked with Tesla and other solar companies many, many times before. He did it correctly. All right. There's a lot going on here. So I think I've already captured probably 2 or 3 of the bullets, so I'll whip right through this. But the first one I want to capture. So Bruce, and seeing this hotel, and having him show me, my parents, my leads architect brother around this place is really quite an honor to get this tour of this place. And some of that kind of inspired people like me or Matt Farrell, another YouTuber, to be more open-minded to getting a used home. Our first home was built brand new. This is the first time my wife and I ever moved into a used home. Was it cheaper than building new? I'm not so sure about that, but our impact, at least, we reused a house that was there, and we proved that if you own one of 1,500 Lacaba homes in Connecticut, you have a fair shot at it. Now some clown on the internet is blogging the details saying it is possible to dump natural gas in the house and go to heat pumps. That's kind of the point of documenting this stuff. Aero barrier, let me capture that. What is aero barrier? If you have a balloon and you make a pinhole in it, if you put Scotch tape over, you make a pinhole in it, it'll shoot air out without popping. It'll just slowly decompress. What if you throw a latex aerosolized spray inside that balloon? It'll plug up that hole because it's going at high speed out the hole. The latex goo will get out the hole. You can do that with your house. You basically inflate your house with a giant fan on your front door. You put tape over windows and stuff. We did this before we moved furniture in. We blasted for an hour and a half this latex white goo in the air, basically an aerosolized spray, and it just settles to the ground and get plastic carpet in the ground. And that's it. The house went from 8 exchanges per hour, so 8 air exchanges per hour for a house, down to 0.8. It became near passive house of 0.6 level, and it's a 33-year-old house. In other words, it was wildly successful. It was also like 3 or 4 grand. It wasn't cheap, but that's the point. You're looking at the map of living there for 20, 30 years, that's a huge difference. You can have control of the quality of our air in our house. So that's so I want to not sugarcoat it, like Dave said too. It's not just about plunking solar on your roof and buying heat pumps, okay? It's the point of this screen. And I'm gonna have a whole bunch more articles to come as whenever time permits. Once I get many of these projects done, they're still not quite done. Insulation we talked about. White vinyl siding, okay, white helps a little in the summer, but also metallic foam underneath. So if you're gonna rip out the skin of your house like we did, pretty good time to put extra foam there. You can't go nuts and put 2-inch, because now you can't hang the siding without it getting all squishy. But also, you've got soffits and overhangs and stuff. Basically 1 inch is about as far as you can go to retrofit and rewrap a whole house with a new skin. Triple pane windows, yeah. Entirely new HVAC. We talked about MERV 13. If you go beyond that to like hospital HEPA, ooh, you're spending more electricity to go shove air through those filters. So that's cool if you can do it and afford it, but for consumer stuff in a home, it seems a lot more likely to do MERV 13. Bruce, can I ask what this hotel is?
We have MERV 13.
There you
basically, yeah.
Okay, and then hospitals like for
Yeah.
positive pressure rooms with people with hepatitis or something, like something where you they'll actually have full HEPA and it's parts of it. But that's expensive stuff.
More important thing is we have 100% outdoor air in each room, so we're not recycling there.
So Bruce is mentioning fresh air, that's coming up in the deck. How'd you do during the Canadian wildfire event where I was measuring 180 parts per million particulates in the outdoor air? It was bad.
Yeah.
This place did great, I'm sure.
We defined it, but when we cleaned the filters, it was like, there was jerk city.
Okay, and I know the microphone's not capturing that. Bruce said he had to clean the filters. Was it orange? I don't know, whatever color that what Canadian wildfire was. All right, let's move along. Oh, and smart thermostats to control it. This actually wasn't that simple. Most of them don't control an ERV. And this is consumer stuff. Bruce has got a commercial place. You can probably handle, many different vendors will handle both humidifiers, dehumidifiers, all of that. Home, it's early days. EcoBee only came out with this thing last year, a smart premium thermostat, which actually looks at the quality of air in the room and decides when new fresh air is needed. If it's Thanksgiving, we have 15 people at our house, that's when people get sleepy, not just from tryptophan, but CO2 levels go up. If you didn't know this already, there's little devices you can measure the CO2 level in your house. And these are all things I started thinking about when I realized when you make your house airtight, you gotta think about those things. Otherwise, you make yourself an unhealthy house. Okay, moving along. Maybe you read this later, maybe we talk about it out in the parking lot. But yeah, I learned a lot of lessons. And this is my last slide before pictures, the fun part. We talked about the first one, second one. Yep, your HVAC contractor needs to have done this before, ideally many times before. And again, I struggle to find someone in a hurry in the Hartford area that had that experience. Be prepared for windows and insulation, air tightness we talked about. This is a weird one, your fireplace flew. I hadn't really thought about that, but I'm like, I don't think we really want to use the fireplace, hon, and to my surprise she agreed, and I jammed lots of foam and insulation and sealed it pretty tight. Doesn't mean the house is not saleable. We didn't rip the chimney down. It actually cost more to rip the chimney down. But we had to fix it a little bit at the top, and we still spent another few $1,000s keeping the chimney in the house that we'll never use. Whatever. That's somehow how it goes. And it costs more to destroy it and fix the hole in the wall. It doesn't make a lot of sense to get rid of it. Leak detection, important. Bear, you have the story of some water damage. Some insurance companies will actually mail you a leak detection device. So I happen to have Flow. but there's many different brands. The point is, if you're priced first unit at home, that's not a good thing. Not so much about energy efficiency, but it's true for any home. And finally, this second to last bullet, Eversource, transformers. If you go past a 20 kilowatt system, in some neighborhoods, my understanding is you might have a problem, or you might have some more money needed. Let's say you're in Avon or Farmington, you have 400 amp service to your house, you're probably golden. You don't need to talk to Eversource, you could have a giant roof and you're probably good to go. But in my neighborhood, that wasn't the case, and I was kind of at the edge of, do I have a problem with the transformers across the street? So just a little warning, this stuff that's out of your control could delay your hopes and dreams for a year or two. That's why, until I actually saw them climb my roof, I wasn't sure it was ever going to happen to my house. There was lots of hurdles to clear. Finally, everything costs twice as much as I thought it would. That's just the reality. So the solution's simple. For better return on investment, just be sure to live to at least 100. That's my plan. So. And then here we go. This is a fun little animation. Your only video for today, it's an animated GIF, but that's Google Maps sun view. So my house is tilted. So north is like, oh, I have a camera here. North is that way. So this whole front of the house gets a lot of sun all afternoon. And even that stretch of house at the top of the image there, which is facing like northeast, that gets some sun in the morning and afternoon, even in the summer. So we don't regret blanketing the whole roof. The first Tesla solar design came up with only about 70% covered. I'm like, well, how much more would it cost to fill the whole roof? Every little spot that makes sense is not actually in the shadow. And it only raised the project price $6,000. My wife and I are like, well, I think we want to do that. We're not going to regret having extra solar where we're selling money back to Eversource. $6,000 sounded kind of reasonable. That year results will vary. Everything's about your shape of your roof. This is kind of a goofy shaped roof, but it's got lots of angles facing different directions, which is a good thing. It means my solar generation curve is nice and wide. It's not like some high peak at noon or something like that. Okay, moving along. First time check. Where am I? Like 5 minutes left? Okay, the pictures are quick. 10 minutes. Okay, cool. I'll point out something here. String inverters, microinverters. People have lots of controversy about what brand to pick. Enphase is a highly regarded company for inverters. There's lots of companies making solar panels. If you have shade, if you have a giant tree, an oak tree that hits half your roof, it does weird things. Tesla's not such a good choice for that. Mine is just full sun all day long. So whatever kind of inverter I went with, doesn't really matter. But some people, you do want to shop carefully and find out from an engineer or whatever that your system's going to design to work well. Because if half of your panels all in one string are in shade, you lose a lot in this kind of design. In my case, I don't really have that. I don't have trees, so we're good. Weird thing to shop for a house without trees, right? Most people want trees for shade. So this is kind of the opposite of building a new house with lots of trees to have a passive design where you need less energy in the first place. Instead, we are retrofitting a house that has full sun. So there it is. That's pretty big. 26.6 kilowatts. Well, we'll get into what that means, but think of it as that, well, David mentioned a hose. You're filling your car. Well, in my case, I'm filling a third car. We have 2 EVs in the garage. The third car is the 4 Powerwalls on the wall. They're about the same. The long range is a little bit more, 70-something kilowatts. The standard range my wife has, 50-something. The 4 Powerwalls, also 50-something. So basically, we have a third car in the garage that needs to be juiced up when the sun comes up. Some days it's done by 10 a.m., some days it's done by 2 p.m., fully juicing those up. It's how fast that garden hose is going and how many hours it runs to the day. So if you see kilowatt hours, that means you're running 27.6 kilowatts for a solid hour. That's how many kilowatt hours do you have. That would be filling all 4 of those batteries halfway full in just 1 hour. That's a lot of juice. Now you never really see that because no roof is perfectly angled aiming straight at the sun. No, I have all sorts of angles at 37 degrees. These are clearly not all aiming at the sun all day. So you're never going to see that number is my point. Highest we've seen is 22 though. Not bad. So we saw 22, a couple spikes here in the summer. And we weren't even installed by June 21st, which is your highest peak of the sun. Okay. This was cool. Here was another aha moment that just hit me a week and a half ago. Finally, I could walk inside the house with a giant grin and tell my wife, you now have a solar-powered car. Just think about what that means. You've seen goofy solar-powered cars with panels on them and they're super efficient. Her normal car is completely solar-powered, through software admittedly, but it's true, it's not fakery. The house, when it has excess solar, instead of sending it back to an Eversource, which is currently only paying me 6 cents a kilowatt hour, let's charge my wife's car. And it works. And this only got deployed like about a month ago, or 2 months ago. It made all the press and the blogs. It only got rolled out and having the right software on my Tesla gateway and on my car and the app on my phone. When all 3 of those were upgraded, Boom, it just worked. There was a new little slider to charge your car just off of sunbeams. Kind of cool. And now when we hop in the car and go to New York or Boston, we're literally driving on sunbeam power only. Nothing to do with EverSource. Yes?
That only work on the Tesla solar panels?
Correct, sure, currently, yep. Now, I would love for a world to have Enphase or everyone else do it. If someone's going to pull it off, it'd be Matt Farrell. I would encourage you to subscribe to his YouTube channel too. He's doing amazing things, building a new house. Complete opposite approach of mine. Building a new house in the woods, geothermal, in central Massachusetts, and wonderful videos. He does all about that stuff. He has Enphase inverters. He would probably figure out a way, maybe do some sort of automation or software. He has a Model 3. He'll probably get there. I hope many people in the world get there on non-Tesla brands. The industry needs that. So does Tesla. They need someone to put up their heels with this stuff. The other funny thing you'll notice about this picture on the right, there's only one car in the garage. My other car is an older bit of software. And it's not upgradable because of FSD beta on there, whatever, long story. Basically, when my other car is available for Tesla and solar, I have no idea if Tesla can even handle that. I haven't seen anyone do a screenshot of 2 cars in the garage where both are charging sunbeams. Find out soon, hopefully. All right, let's move along. There's the house, it needed a new roof. So the first day I crawled up and ripped off the dish, and it needed lots of work. Let's move along. This is what it looks like when Tesla arrives. It's something the neighbors will notice. There's a urinal, toilet on the front lawn. There's a dumpster there. It's just pretty incredible, and they're parked in the street. There's no way around it. Your neighbors might or might not be on board. Mine were really cool about it. They were pretty good. They never drove across the neighbor's lawn or anything. My landscaper sure did, but these guys were good. They were very professional. They loved to work. They had giant smiles, and they were singing 80s tunes on the roof all day. And these guys were in their late 30s. I'm not sure why they're showing the 80s tunes, but it was really cool for them to talk to neighbors who walked by, like, what are you doing? They would go out and talk to them. They were very proud of their work. These guys are Tesla employees, not contractors. And it was amazing. So you're looking at the underlayment, that rubbery stuff. It's very tough. And if a nail goes through it and it gets pulled out, it just self-heals that hole. You're looking at hooks in the roof. They're relying on those to not break their neck. They're rappelling off of those lines all day long doing the roof. 7 people on your roof. And an electrician working at the same time downstairs. So yeah, that's a little bit of what it looks like. And now you'll see also the house had old siding that was metal and beat up, new siding there. And there we go. I took this yesterday right before the thunderstorm. It's like, that's how it looks done. And that side of the garage there is a nice giant surface facing south. So it worked out pretty well. And then our front roof's southwest. So, getting to that point, the gutters got installed 2 days ago. That's why I was taking pictures yesterday, just before nasty thunderstorms rolled in. And I was so busy taking pictures for 15 minutes, I didn't make it to Lowe's in time to put hay down before all my grass seed washed away from the friggin' thunderstorm last night. So I have some more yard work to do when I get home tonight, but I got the pictures. Anyhow, the gutters are on, but man, what a mess when you have seeds and it just splashes mud in the house and you need to put hay all over it and learn that the hard way. Yes, we ripped out all our bushes. We have a landscaper yet to do. We got some work to do. Got to pave the driveway and get landscaping done in the spring or something. There's the front, and there's the peak in the garage. So this is the world's first reveal. No one else has seen these pictures. I haven't tweeted them, haven't put them on my blog or anything. Because it just got finished yesterday with the gutters 2 days ago. Lots of reseeding to do. But in the garage, you'll see 4 Powerwalls and 3 inverters above it. And then my wife's car plugged in, but it's that simple. So that's what's going on. Even that got a gotcha. Yes, question?
Does it require the 4 Powerwalls?
No, I mean, they're expensive. Whatever you can afford. You're never going to regret having too many batteries because it keeps you going longer. There's no way I'm going to make it through a winter night on just these batteries. I'm going to have to use grid power. So I have to bank the money I earn in the summer to use for the winter.
So how
Great
long,
question.
How long does the 4 batteries last? Like how long would it take for you to run out of battery?
If it's a 95-degree day and both heat pumps are coming along trying to keep the house cool, only like a day. If it's shoulder months like April and October, I could go for 3 days using the hairdryer, cooking in the oven, nothing normal, nothing abnormal about life. But you ask a good question. Span sponsored some videos, I'll get your question in a second, to have people turn off the power in the house and see how what a pain in the butt it was. There's videos out there about that. And I'm actually trying to work with Span to try to put out something similar about my house. Question?
Yeah, so is everything solar or is it W roof as well?
Yeah, no, I'll go back up a slide here. It's solar, so that's a pretty high percentage. The roof is solar. Every little white box you see is solar, and then the parts that are shaded are roof that really don't see enough sun to justify a panel. So they're glass, tempered glass. You could throw hail at them, large size. These have survived fine in Florida with nasty hailstorms that destroy a car, by the way, wreck the metal. The roof was handled it fine. So yes, I'm in my 50s, I'll make it to 80 before the warranty's up on the roof. Now, the batteries are only 10 years. Battery technology marches on. I wish there were LFP cells, they should be, they'll last longer. My batteries are gonna get abused. Maybe I hope they fail within 10 years because they're under warranty now. They'll probably fail at 11 years, right? But the technology will have moved on, it'll be worth a whole lot, you know, it should be a lot cheaper by then. A decade from now, I think I'll be all right. Great questions. You can't tell from this angle what's solar and what's not. They're mixed in. Yes? Okay, fine, my time, all right, I'm getting hooked soon. So these pictures are gonna go fast. There's the two heat pumps. There's the electric. There's the mast. We'd replace the mast, replace the wire across the street. Eversource thankfully paid for that. New transformer 2 years ago, still that might not quite be enough because 10 houses are under one transformer. So we're now helping 9 houses around us. Okay, there's more stories to that, but we'll move along. This is the utility side of the house. Not the prettiest, but I went and covered it with lattice work a couple days ago. So over on the right, a whole bunch of pipes with thick wires going to the basement, and you can't cover up the red big powerhouse switches that the firemen need. So I covered up what I could and made it look decent anyway. That mast needed to be new because I didn't want trucks ripping the wiring off my house. So we had to pay the electrician to put a taller mast in. All these little details, right? The costs kept climbing. The ridge vent you'll see there, that's a ridge vent, so you're seeing air come out the top. And then along the bottom edge, right above the gutter, is a thick black line. The whole roof is 1 inch off my roof. It's hovering 1 inch over that white underlay. So air just flows right up the holes in the bottom and shooting out the top on the ridge vent there. So your roof stays cooler that way. And my attic didn't seem to really change temperatures before and after this project. So I had a gray roof and I went to a black roof and I'm basically where it was, it seems. So that's good, which is what you want for solar. And there's me doing my little thing, trying to hide it. Also, water was gushing out because I had no gutters for 3 months getting a contractor for that, pouring right over the electrical equipment and causing a little bit of rust already, even though this is supposedly weatherproof stuff. So I put PVC plastic over it to not worry about snow or rain in the future. And there's the back of the house. So whole lot of trench work. You can see the gutters have to be 6 inch, and Tesla does not install them. So I had another contractor for that. And you see in the little gullies there, there's little white flanges over the deck there, keeping the water from splashing onto your head when you're on the deck. Because the water goes down that trench there, those angles between the roof lines, at high speed. So you need to block it. So Tesla does recommend 6 inch gutters. And they don't publish that on their website anywhere. This was up to the excellent local Tesla guy talking to my Simon guy, and they worked it out. So it was a lot of coordination, but yeah, Tesla doesn't actually do it. They need the gutters off before they start their work. You got to deal with putting something back up again. Now you know. And there's my effort to go all electric, and I got the shed going this week too. There's charging out in the shed. It's an electric mower, and the same batteries get shared with the snowblower. So my snowblower is cheaper because it's using the same batteries I invested in for the expensive mower. So the snowblower on the left becomes more like 800 rather than 1400 for a good snowblower because it has no batteries. Okay, and that's it. That's the second, I think the very last picture. One car's charging, so it shows green on the wall. The other car is idle. And you'll see I hang the cables from the ceiling so nobody gets their hands dirty. It takes all of 2 seconds to plug in the cars when we pull into the driveway. Questions? No time for questions, but come talk to me afterwards.